listening and watching Rashkin Report, and my name is Yuri Rashkin. Welcome, thank you for watching. My guest today is a writer, a professor at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, an author of a recent book, Notes from Cyberground, Trumpland and My Old Soviet Feeling. Mikhail Iossel. Mikhail, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Yuri. Good to be back.
Let's begin with our outgoing president, who has been in power for a long time, it seems, even though it's not even been a full term yet. And he has done so much that I understand right now he is exploring the possibility of what it takes to get an airport named after him. That is, the world that Donald Trump lives in. How do you view where we are right now with just a few weeks left? Are you daring to look forward? Are you cautious? And how do you look at the last 4 years? How do you see that?
Well, for a small donation, mayor of some small provincial town in Russia will name airport after him, probably, and for like maybe a couple $100, but or a couple $100,000. But can you imagine flying out of that airport named Trump Airport? It's just a major jinx. Whoever would want to do that? It's everything. Everything he's ever launched always came down. So no, I think it's not a good idea. Not a good idea to name an airport after him. It's just not safe. Um, but I think it's been exhausting, right? That's why it feels like much longer than just 3 years and change, uh, because like almost 4 years, because he's been in our face every single day, multiple times per day. He's been shouting, he's been yelling, he's been throwing tantrums, he's been basically anything, anything to uh, remain in the center of our mindset, just constantly, just just this endless black vortex of attention need, and it's been exhausting. And where I think majority of Americans are just starved for a sense of normalcy, for somebody who doesn't yell, who doesn't behave like a spoiled teenager, like a bully, like who just basically denigrates the office of the presidency every single minute, this of of every day. Um, this Trump stain, it's literally a stain. It's just a smear. It will have to be like almost rubbed out of the carpet in the Oval Office. It's just repugnant. So yeah, it'll be remembered like a bad dream. We will not be able to come to terms, I think, with the very fact that a person like that was a president, like literally a person with zero redeeming qualities, like all around re, like repugnant person. But
Is this so? Is Joe Biden's victory a vindication of moral and ethical values?
I think people, just the majority, large majority of Americans, just wanted to get rid of Trump. You've noticed, of course, that although Trump was fired by 7 million over like um, uh, votes over Trump, um, but the down ballots were not a victory for Democrats, to put it mildly. They failed to retake the Senate. Instead of expanding their majority in the House, they actually lost at least 10 seats in the House. So people, whatever message people wanted to say, overriding one was that people wanted to get rid of Trump. They just wanted to for him to be gone.
Is this like wanting to change the channel?
Is or turn off an off-putting channel, or just something is just something that we've been forced to watch, and it's been disgusting.
Are you concerned about what Trump can do in the time that he has left before January 20th? How concerned are you?
Like everyone, probably very concerned because he is unpredictable to the extent of being unpredictable to himself. That's the worst part of it. There are probably no scenario. There are no scenarios whereby Biden wouldn't be sworn in on in a month from today. Uh, but uh, uh, but there are plenty of scenarios where you know he'll do something breathtakingly stupid, issue an order that will not be followed, but nonetheless, the very fact that the president of the United States is discussing in the Oval Office with a bunch of criminal crackpots um, the possibility of a military coup in the United States of America, not some, military dictatorship down somewhere in the third world. It's just a stunning thought in and of itself. First off, it's grounds for immediate removal from office, but Republican majority in the Senate is just way too cowardly for that. And they still try to normalize that. And actually, it was kind of amazing that this was not front page news or not above the fold news in New York Times or Washington Post. It was like item 8, A8 or something in New York Times. But it's a stunning thought that he would send military to seize the voting machines. And all of that was shut down by his senior staff members. But nonetheless, uh, you know, it necessitates sort of like immediate clarifications from top military saying that the military take an oath to the Constitution, but not to whatever. And so it's just, yeah, the scary part of it is that he doesn't know himself what he can, uh, what he might do. I don't know. But what
What do you think is like the worst part of what Trump has done? Is there something specific? Is there something that is just there's a general feeling? I mean, you're a writer, so I would accept an answer on any level. But
debased the office of the presidency in the eyes of the American people. I think drastically, criminally, and probably irredeemably. The very, like I said, the very fact that a man like this was actually president, because there are ugly people like moral degenerates uh, running for president before, but none of them made it to the White House. And even some like open racists like George Wallace, who later, after being paralyzed, recanted and apologized to the African American community for having been an open racist his whole life. Even he seems to be this guy seems to be completely um, out of it. He just doesn't understand anything. He doesn't know anything. He hasn't read the Constitution. He doesn't know what president can and cannot do. He doesn't understand that the Americans' loyalty lies not to the president but to the Constitution and to the idea of America. He just doesn't understand anything. He's completely incognizant, and he's also being the president yet at the same time positioning himself as a victim and awakening the sense of victimhood in tens of millions of Americans. It's a rebellion of the so-called quote unquote little man. It's a very fascist kind of thing. It's just a very famous book of my childhood, and it was a very popular German writer who was translated in the Soviet Union a lot, Hans Fallada. His most famous novel was Что же дальше, маленький человек, in Russian, What's Next, Little Man. It was about basically precisely that, it just how one becomes member of the fascist or Nazi movement in Germany because one feels completely overlooked, forgotten, insignificant, and this is something that gives them a sense of of rage and purpose somehow, and so that's what he reawakened. That's nothing new, really. What's new is the degree to which he um, he humiliated uh, the White House and humiliated the office. And basically, the United States has never had a president whose fealty to, let's say, Russia was greater than that to America. But that's the case with Trump. And his sense of fealty is um, to whoever offers him money and whoever praises him. Uh, just think about it. He relentlessly praised Putin, but he always, uh, vilified John McCain. He always vilified John McCain and any number of American patriots, but he praised to the skies Kim Jong Un. I mean, it's unbelievable. We basically have lost all system of moral coordinates under this guy. That's what happened. That's the
Mikhail,
scariest part of it, and it's
mm,
that is, I think, is irretrievable, because now, okay, there is a no- Joe Biden is coming into office and he'll restore some norms, and I don't know what is he going to do with the rest of the world.
how
Apologize?
long is it going to take, and can Biden do it? That's kind of my next
No, Biden
question.
Biden can do part of it, but it will take generations.
Really?
Because the process that are taking place in the United States right now are generational process. The split between urban and
No, but
rural.
I'm sorry, Mikhail. I was thinking there's the standing of the United States in the world has taken a nosedive under President Trump. So, under different president, does it mean that it's going to go sky high, or are you anticipate like a slow recovery because people just don't trust, have lost some trust?
Well, the rest of the world will get over the fact that America basically uh, took a nosedive in its morals, but just that it happens. It's your American basically internal affair. You wanted to have a degenerate in the office. It was a reaction to the first black president in America. So racist America has decided to reassert itself. We can't quite understand it, but it's your business. It's your American affair. Um, uh, that will, the rest of the world, the rest of the West will politely, pretend that, okay, it happens. Um, but uh, the harm that's been caused, the American mind and the American psyche, that's something that will linger for a very long time, I think, because nothing has been quite resolved, really. So Trump electorate will stay in place, and it will be looking for another uh, cult-like figure to attach itself to in its rebellion against the coasts, and its rebellion against the liberals, against the educated ones, against Muslims, against blacks, against Jews, against any number of people who are not like me, and it's the nature of process taking place in the United States and around the world, as a matter of fact, in globalization and automatization, loss of jobs, lots of self-respect, lots, and also
But
fear
on,
of.
on everyday level, would you, Mikhail Iossel, feel less safe going to the United States?
Well, I'm a U.S. citizen, and so
But you teach, you work in Canada.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I wouldn't. But then again, I don't. Uh, you know, I vote in New York State. My family relatives are in San Francisco. I have friends all over America, but I don't have many friends in really rural America. That would be kind of interesting, but I don't know. Many years ago, 50 years ago, knowing that he was sort of like fatally ill, John Steinbeck wrote a book, took a trip, was specially custom made kind of van, travels with Charlie in America, Charlie being his dog, Poodle,
Mhm.
King's Poodle. And so uh, several things. First off, people recognized him then. He drove mainly through the rural America. From New York, he drove through from California, he drove to New York, but mainly through rural areas for several months. first people recognized him because he was on the cover of Time magazine and he was a Nobel Prize winner. And I don't think there is a writer actually right now in the United States whose face would be recognizable to most Americans, and hasn't been for a while. But secondly, how, and it was
I mean,
actually,
there's Stephen King.
no, I don't think so.
Really? I think Stephen King would be recognizable to most
Maybe,
people.
yeah,
All right, but nonetheless.
yeah. Nonetheless, yeah. And he's a yeah, maybe, but he's a slightly different kind of writer than Steinbeck. But anyways, and so, and secondly, how um, they were talking about politics with random people and Steinbeck and so forth, but how peaceful, how void of anger and rancor those conversations were, basically, even though that split between rural and urban America existed even then. But it would be a very instructive book to reread right now. It was a popular book in the Soviet Union, actually. So until Steinbeck wrote about the Green Berets, and then since then he was banned in the Soviet Union.
So the updated version of Teckerville or Tuckerville across America or whatever that was
Tocqueville,
American.
yeah. But no, but it's actually it's a very engaging kind of, just aging old writer and his dog in a custom-made van. They just drive all across the United States, mainly in side roads and just back roads, and stay, and they just drink with local people basically
See, that
wherever.
sounds pretty safe. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I don't know if it could be. That was 1961 or 62. I don't know if this could be done now. That's my point. I think that the split is very, very, very. I understand that 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 rural areas are not just rural areas necessarily. I lived in Minnesota for 2 years, although then I lived in Minneapolis and so forth. But I think that that's what happened over the 4 years of. I've noticed it even in my own interactions with people, basically, and in my own practice. What I write, I don't necessarily post on Facebook my writing, but I post about on politics and so forth. How much more rancorous it has become. I've noticed it was similar to how it's poison that's entered American bloodstream in the same way as just I thought by association when I was running literary programs in St. Petersburg, Russia, many years ago, 1998 to 2008. How in early 2000s I noticed when this happened, when even friends of mine suddenly started saying things that Putin was saying on television, and that is that the West doesn't respect us anymore, and so forth. Poison was being injected in the Russian vein, and and this is what happened here now. Poison has been injected in the American vein, and it basically it created the degree of rancor that I don't know what it will take to heal for it to abate. I don't know because it's
Well, I'm counting on education.
yeah. But that's kind of realistically speaking, most Americans don't go to university, and it would be unrealistic to count on people to to go to university, and maybe you are counting on education, but you also know that there is a great degree of disparity in America, and there is dire poverty in America and in rural America in particular, and there are areas where if you told a person, let's say from Russia or some other place, that there are areas in the United States where people actually starve, where there is no electricity, there is no, indoor plumbing. There are areas like this, large areas in today's United States, and people wouldn't believe it, but that's what it is. And there are people, in rural America. There is an opioid epidemic.
So
There are.
what is the where do you find hope?
Uh,
Before we continue with the conversation on the topic of poison that you brought up, where do you find hope in all of this?
Only in the fact that people sooner or later get tired of exercising themselves um, uh, in the direction of the worst angels of their nature. People get tired of being worse than they are, and people get tired of thinking of themselves as being worse than they are, because that's what Putin is telling Russians, and that's what Trump has been essentially telling Americans for the 4 years, that they are basically worse than they are, that they are free, that there is no shame in being worse than you are. And I only believe that people, I only hope that people do not get sort of like stuck in one point on the axis of their existential coordinates, that they keep shifting between their better and worse selves, depending on many factors. And now we've gone through the lowest period, through the most drastic shift in the direction of the worst sides of human nature in America. So I don't know that one necessarily has to have hope. One just has to have hope in the passage of time and in life in general. But Joe Biden, definitely by nature, by inclination, by sort of like by his predisposition, he is the moral healer, he is the uniter. So he will try to do that. And he will be able to bring on board a large number of Americans. But I don't think he will bring on board majority of members of the Republican Party in the Senate, for instance, who are invested in continuing rancor and continued, you know, push towards bigotry, because you know that's their that's the only way they can uh, cling to power. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Mikhail, then to go on that topic of poison you mentioned a minute ago, which would have been a great transition, but I'll just hang on to that and pull it in now. Alexei Navalny, who is basically the only politician left in Russia, and now he's not even in Russia anymore. He's now in Germany, where he was moved after he was poisoned. And luckily for him, the plane landed early, and the ambulance medics had the antidote that would be given in really general in that set of circumstances, and that apparently is what saved his life. And he first released a video that's been seen now 17 million times. It's not a K-pop, but it's pretty good. Where he describes everything that happened with the breathtaking detail, and we saw all of this because CNN and other news agencies, news media, have been part of this investigation and followed it and put together their own materials as well on top of this. But just this morning, Navalny released another video where he basically called one of his supposed to be assassins and somewhere between interviewed and interrogated him, pretending to be somebody else. So he prank called him. And this person just revealed all of this information. How are you viewing all of this unfolding set of events from where you are in beautiful Montreal, Canada?
Well, it's it's a common misconception to think that, and it's a carryover from the old Soviet times and from Le Carre novels and from rest in peace John Le Carre, and from numerous. I've been watching recently, for instance, this French Le Bureau, where this FSB is prominently featured and so forth, as some kind of a ruthlessly efficient organization. It's not. It has never been. KGB has not been, despite the popular belief to the contrary. But it has never lived up to that reputation. But under Putin, it's become completely dysfunctional. So you basically, it's the degree of incompetence and dysfunctionality that is just almost, um, not almost, it's unbelievable. So it's total collapse, and of course, it's massive fall on his Botox face for Putin, but who probably doesn't even realize the extent to which he has become, um, you know, uh, he is being reviled in the West, because but Russia is kind of, yeah, it's you know that's sort of like the I don't know what else to say when it just um,
Does it make you, let's say, more concerned for your safety, other people's safety, or are you looking at these people who are running after Navalny for 4 years and keep trying to kill him unsuccessfully and they keep failing? I mean, it's almost Pink Panther on some level.
well, who are we to be concerned about our safety? Neither you or I are like exactly like Trotsky or Navalny, or but
But that is a very common excuse, by the way, in Russia. Like, who am I? I'm nobody. Yes, that's
well,
true. There is a higher level of
listen,
people. Maybe they should
when
be
they get to the
concerned.
point of poisoning people in Wisconsin and Montreal, that it's it's a stretch. At this point, it will take massive quantities of Novichok poison, but it's like industrial strength, like kind of vats
All
of
right, but there is there are powerful bureaucrats in the Russian system that are making their government go, and they could be now more concerned, perhaps. But that's not for us to worry about either. Um, I don't
Russia is
know.
Russia having facing the fact that it has basically no future, to put it very bluntly, is isolating itself from the world, which will hasten its disintegration from within. But it's not a pretty sight, and it's not going to be easy for anyone. It's country with in a terrible demographic situation, a terrible economic situation, with largely cynical and angry population, but also apathetic, angrily apathetic population, and so by and large, so I don't. It clearly doesn't know to what path to take, where to go, who to align itself with, what future it can stake for itself, because it doesn't seem to have a viable future, quite frankly, because the world is moving past, you know, petro economy. The world is moving. When John McCain called Russia like a gas station, right? But the world doesn't need any more like giant gas stations anymore, and the world is moving beyond.
Yeah,
Uh,
but regular gas stations don't have nuclear weapons or teams of assassins.
Yeah, and but we've seen how ruthlessly efficient this team of assassins has been, following one guy for 3.5 years and then failing to poison him actually, and then uh, or how efficient they are trying to poison someone in Salisbury in the UK, and killing an innocent woman, you know,
But
for
it
no.
sounds very medieval and very inefficient. It's like you don't run economy this way. It's very,
Well, no,
people talk about Putin as having like a hands-on control, but manual control. This is what that is. How can you build an economy like that? It doesn't function.
Putin clearly loves poisons. He clearly loves the Medici's and Macbeth and all of that stuff. He clearly has that mindset. He loves that. So that's his little quirk. He likes poisons. He likes poisoning people with unbelievably potent, you know, and the world will condemn him for it. And so yeah, you have a dying former superpower that is, it's by all definitions of agony, it's an agony when a state is expending its resources on trying to poison an opposition leader and failing to do so.
But I just don't. I just want to be clear because I don't think necessarily word agony means that something is going to end soon because agony can take a very long time.
Well, but we know that our lifetime, our timeline does not coincide with history's timeline at all. So what's a lifetime for us is nanosecond for history. So it'll take another 10, 15, 20 years, but it'll that's where Russia is headed at this moment. It's headed um, in the direction of being sort of like futureless. And already there are regions it's huge, right? So there are many time zones away. There is Khabarovsk, which is the city that basically has seen protests, non-stop protests for months now, but it's too far away from Moscow to make any, and it doesn't radiate enough of a wave to sort of like reach other regions of Russia. But these local points of protest will continue to multiply, and sooner or later it will lead to the breakup of certain parts of Russia. It's just too humongous for its own good, landmass wise, and so it doesn't have a viable economy. It doesn't have a place in a future integrated world economy, really, and it's lost 20 years of great possibility. Remember how possible the world was for Russia just 20 years ago, how warmly welcome Putin was, not by everyone, because there were
But
people who,
wouldn't the same apply then to Russia that might apply to the United States if a new ruler comes in this case, new President Biden, and the rest of the world's going to be like you just said? Well, we can't quite understand this, but it's your business, so just try to follow laws better next time.
yeah,
And now, wouldn't we say the
America,
same to Russia and then welcome them back with open arms for somebody after Putin?
yeah, well, after Putin is the key point here. There is no after Putin. America reinvents and reimagines itself and corrects its course every 4 to 8 years, every 4 years. Russia doesn't, and that's the point. Now imagine that if someone like Trump just basically occupied the White House for 20 years, where do you think the United States would have been? So, and that's the situation in Russia, except that Putin is in many ways worse than Trump, obviously, uh, because unlike Trump, he kind of knows what he wants, and so yeah, America has a self-correcting mechanism built in. Russia doesn't.
Mikhail Iossel, writer, professor at Concordia University, Montreal, Canada. Thank you so much for being once again guest on
Pleasure.
Rashkin Report.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.